Hey guys, it's episode 9 of the BookNerd podcast. We have an extended interview with new author Rachel Litfin on today's show, so let's start the show. My interview with Rachel Litfin is a lengthy one, coming in at almost 45 minutes. It has a different, less formal structure I hope you all enjoy. With a longer interview on hand, I did not want to cover much else in this opening segment except for a couple quick things. At the time of this recording, San Diego Comic-Con is in full swing. Gene and the rest of the BookNerd crew are on site doing a plethora of interviews and creating content you guys should be able to check out on the site in coming weeks. They look like they are having fun, and I can't wait to see what they come back with. On a sadder note, the crew over at Collider.com has lost a member of their team. I do want to say that while Gene BookNerd and Collider are not affiliated in any way, we do send our condolences for this loss of Mr. John Schnepp. John passed away on July 19th after suffering a stroke a week earlier. I send my personal heartfelt condolences to not only his work family at Collider, but to his family and fiancé during this time. John was well known in the entertainment industry, and while I did not know him personally, I will miss him. He hosted the Collider Hero Show, which I found in podcast form less than a year ago. He was a big fan of all things comics and an advocate for being a fan without being a jerk. I appreciated his passion for the things he spoke about and his insight into things happening in the business. At this time, I will provide a moment of silence for Mr. Schnepp. Thank you. Before the interview, I feel it shouldn't need to be said, but it is hot outside, folks. It is hot in a lot of places. Be sure to drink water to keep from getting sick. Also, don't leave your pets, or, I can't believe I have to say this, your children in hot cars, please. Thank you. Today's interview is with Rachel Litfin, as mentioned previously. She's a young author just getting her start after self-publishing her first book, something she has been working on since being a child. She fills us in on where the desire to write came from, inspiration for her creativity, playing World of Warcraft as a family, and much more. But don't take my word for it, though. Let's see what she had to say. Hey Book Nerds, it's Mark, and today we're chatting with a budding young author named Rachel Litfin. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm really well, Mark. I'm very good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm still trying to get my first cup of coffee in me.
Yeah, I'm on my almost done with my first cup of tea right now, so I feel you.
Yeah, it's the nectar that gives us life.
Oh yeah, I have a really embarrassingly high caffeine tolerance.
Yeah, me too. I'll drink coffee all day long, and then it never fails. There'll be that one or two times where it actually does affect me, and then I'm up till 1 a.m. And
Yeah. I've done that too.
It's like it's the same coffee I always drink, yet here I am. Rachel, I know you happen to be in your mid-20s, and you've just recently finished your first novel. And I happen to know that there was a long process for you in the creation of this, but before we get to talking about the book, what can you tell us about yourself? What can you tell people about who Rachel Litfin is?
Well, I was a product of of nerddom. My parents were nerds, and I grew up as such. I grew up on Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and Lord of the Rings and weird 90s sci-fi channel. I grew up in a family of nerds. I played World of Warcraft for a really long time in my teen years. And of course I was very girly. I love Disney princesses and stuff. So being such a fandom nerd, I was inspired by so much. And I always had an affinity for storytelling. I have a theater background myself. I'm an actress. And I've happened to have a great grasp on self-expression through the written word. And so being a storyteller like I am, I was, being the culmination of all things great in nerddom, I was about 13 when I first thought of the Chronicles of Royal High. And from there, just all throughout my teen years, my young adult years, just this story kept building and building and building and building in my head, and it never left me. So I would actually say that a huge chunk of my identity is tied to this book series. I grew up with it in my head half my life. So it's always something I knew I was going to do. It was never doubt in my mind. I just didn't know when I'd actually pull myself together and finish it. but yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about my background and stuff.
Okay, and now before we move on, I have to ask: were you Alliance or Horde?
Both. I had friends on both sides.
Okay, yeah, I did the same thing. I had a human mage, and then once I started playing my troll shaman, it was like, now I see why everyone plays this side.
I had a human pally whose name was Adela, which happens to be my heroine's name in my book series. And my other main on Alliance was a hunter named Raela, and she was a night elf. And then on my Horde side, I never got really high in the Horde. I just had Horde friends, and I would just, derp around with them. Mm-hmm. So I really just liked the Hunters and the Paladins. Those were always my mains. So
I liked having fun, and when I originally signed up, my brothers were already... I think I started with a rogue, actually, and then I moved into a mage because my raiding group needed one. We didn't have one. And then when we decided to try the Horde, I made the troll shaman, and I couldn't resist. His name was Healing Mon. So
that's great.
Yeah, he was fun using Healbot and stuff like that. It was a blast, but thankfully I got out of that. My life for 3 years was just nothing but that game.
They call it World of Warcraft for a reason.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that is my brother. So I have a little brother. He's a few years younger than me. He's in college. He is the smartest kid I know. He's fantastic. But when we were kids, he was the one who actually got me into World of Warcraft. And I started playing, and Family of Nerds, my parents started playing. So at one time, all four of us were raiding on the same server. And we kind of got known for it, because on our server, people found out we were a family. And it was really freaking cool. My dad was the most badass mage. His DPS was just stupid. And, we did that for a couple years. The funny thing is, my mom and dad still play. They bond over that. Like, that's their thing.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, they keep adding to that game, and, I mean, if they enjoy it, and it's something they can do together.
No, it's their couple nights a week. They unwind, and they just hang out and play after work. That's their unwind thing. And it's adorable because they have their computers together and they sit together and they play. Love my parents.
That's cool. So was there ever any, if you're in a dungeon or in a raid, you have any of that communication going back off the mics like, hey, pick up your DPS or where are my heals?
Oh, yeah. We would just shout at each other through the house. Like, obviously, we were on headset and everything with the raid group, too, but we would just shout at each other.
Yeah. I remember we used to take our computers over to my brother's house and LAN them together.
LAN parties.
And me and my brother would be doing arena, and it'd be 2-on-2, and we'd be just yelling at each other.
God.
Usually it was me yelling at him, but yeah, those were the days.
I have the biggest smile on my face right now. I'm remembering so many good things about those days. But that's the thing. Those days were so good. They were so influential on me as a writer. In my books, in my work, in Chronicles, you're going to see a lot of WoW influence. Just because that's, during my formative years, during my imaginative years, that's what came out, I guess. So talking about this right now is just like bringing me down some serious memory lane. Very, very happy.
Well, that's good. I'm glad they're not sad memories. That's not what we would be trying to do here.
I don't know, though. What kind of writer are you?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so now we got a little bit about your past. Now, you said you had the idea for your novel in your head, bouncing around. So obviously, why the idea was there, you were continuously adding to it as time progressed.
Yes.
when did you finally actually start putting something down? I mean, I assume you typed it, but when did you start putting something down to paper?
I was 13. I was in my freshman year English classes. I would just write little blurbs, little scenes, bios on characters, or just different things. And I really, really started writing it when I was 15. I remember that's when I really started, like, typing it out. And it was at the encouragement of my mom. I would tell my mom stuff, and, you know, because even when I was a little kid, like during summer break, I'd be like, Mom, I'm so bored. And she'd hand me legal pads and crayons and go make me a story. I'd be like 5 or 6. And so then I'd come back with a story. And so that was always kind of something I would do. And then, so, you know, now you know, I was older, and Mom was like, write that down. I'm all like, oh, okay. And I'd come to her with ideas, and I'd be like, you know, what if they did this? And she's like, oh, yeah, that's really cool. And then she would bounce back at me. She's like, but what if they did this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And so it just, this whole world, a lot of it, too, was influenced by things that were happening to me in real life as a teenager. Absolutely, friendships, breakups, experiences, places I went to, people I knew. Those, you know, there's always so much reality in writing. Even if it's a complete crazy fantasy, you're always going to find things about the author in there. And so, you know, not only did I love fantasy, I was playing World of Warcraft. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I played World of Warcraft. That's how much of an oxymoron I was. And, you know, and I was a theater kid, too. I was a cheerleader, a theater kid, and I loved Lord of the Rings, and I played World of Warcraft. So I was one of those. And, you know, I was myself a lot, too, and people just didn't know how to handle that because it's just not a thing. You know, 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. Nowadays, I feel like it's way more accepted. But with all of that, that really was the culmination of, you know, me starting to write it down. And so then through the years, I would work on it. And then I would shelve it, and I wouldn't touch it for like a year. And then I'd bring it out again. And then I wouldn't touch it, and then I'd bring it out again. And my parents were always all like, when are you going to finish it? When are you going to finish it? And, you know, I either the fear of failing or the fear of success even, and just being a lazy butt, procrastinating social life, you know, things get in the way. And we all know that. I mean, one of my favorite sayings as a writer is, you know, hi, I'm an author. My hobbies include not writing. because that's a thing. But yeah, it really started in my teen years, and it never left. So. Wow.
So it's a long road. I do want to ask a question about something you mentioned. You mentioned your mom constantly giving you the pads and encouraging you to be creative. Now,
yeah.
Obviously, it sounds like your parents are very supportive and encouraging of this. Do they have creative outlets as well?
Oh yeah. I come from a really creative, artistic family. My dad is a jack of all trades. He's a musician, a composer, a photographer. He does design engineering. I mean, he can build like anything, and very artistic. He can draw. I mean, just that's my dad. And he was a theater guy too, and he sings. So he's all that. My mom is theater and very good at public speaking, and she writes as well. And though she hasn't published anything, and she needs to, she's got some good stuff, and I've been sitting on her. And so, you know, that's my mama. And then my brother, I mentioned, he's in college right now. He's a theater major himself. So it's a very theatrical, very artistic family. And yeah, you know.
Definitely runs in the family.
It does. And I fully acknowledge that the support system I have had in my parents it's rare. It is rare, and I'm so grateful for it. I wouldn't have done what I've done. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't write the things I've written if I had anybody different in my life.
That's fantastic to hear. Now that we know about you, your family, where this creative spark comes from, now tell us about your grand creation, please.
All right. So with all of that, the culmination was the Chronicles of Royal High. And this is a young adult fantasy book series. I usually bill it about, that 12, 13 age range on up, but I've had 10-year-olds read this, and they're loving it. Families are loving this. And essentially, the series follows Adela Everhart. She's a peasant girl. She is it's all set in a high fantasy world, so there's fairy technology, there's crystal ball communications, like cell phones, there's magic mirror displays, fairy technology creates portals for fast traveling, stuff like that. Ogres, mermaids, dragons, kingdoms vying for prestige and power. It's just very undisclosed time and a long time ago fantasy. And Adela Everhart is a peasant girl. She lives a peasant life. She is visited one night by her estranged grandmother, who drops the bombshell of her life and says, "I'm sorry for banishing your father, but you are the heir to our kingdom, and you have to come with me right now to go to Royal High and finish the Academy for Nobility. You're going to be queen in 3 years." And, Adela just completely is uprooted and whisked away. She goes to Royal High, the finishing Academy for Nobility, where the other future kings and queens from the other realms go to this castle high school as well. And they are refined, and they learn etiquette and monarchy, and they create alliances with each other, or they get into fights with each other, which causes kingdom wars and stuff. And of course, there are a bunch of teenagers in a castle high school, so shenanigans. But the conflict lies with an ancient race of dragons that everyone had thought was vanquished. They're rising back into power, trying to break free from their 1,000-year imprisonment. And it is this that Adela and her friends, through a series of threatening events, they suddenly find themselves against this new war they are waging. And in the later books, as the series progresses, Adela and her friends become paladins, warriors of light, to fight back these dragons to protect their kingdom homelands.
I can see where some of your inspiration came from now, and it's funny because when you mention all of the, future nobles going to the same school, and then you say they kind of have beef with each other and it leads to wars down. That's just so high school.
It is. No, it is. It's super high school. It's Harry Potter, but for royals.
Mm-hmm.
It's Harry Potter. It's Royal Harry Potter, really. And then the World of Warcraft background, obviously heavily influenced by paladins. I love paladins. I love paladin lore. I just think paladins are like the coolest characters. I played D&D for a little bit. I played a paladin, and so I kind of created my own little paladin lore in this world. And and it's just it's little bits and pieces of all of these fantasy fandoms that we love rolled up into a YA book series, and YA series are such guilty pleasure genres. And so, yeah.
I've read a little bit at the beginning of this, and I was actually really impressed by the world building just in the small section that I read. You mentioned you mentioned the crystal balls, you mentioned all this stuff, and it's like, you mentioned this stuff is fairy tech and this and that, and it works just like a cell phone. It's like, okay, that's the real world equivalent of Apple. Yeah, I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I see.
What did you just say? It cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Like the crystal balls, and I believe, if I remember right, those are fairy tech, and fairy is essentially Apple of this world that you built.
Yes, exactly.
So
it's a high fantasy world, and a long, long time ago, undisclosed. But best way I describe it to people, it's fantasy pop. It's fantasy pop. It's kind of a little bit hip. There's a few things that completely correlate to our world today.
Yeah, and that's what I actually found really cool, because then it goes further into describing other stuff in the environment, like the mirrors that are basically, they're TVs, right? All the mirrors are TVs.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, okay, this is kind of cool, because it starts off and it almost seems like it's your typical not cliche, I'm sorry. It starts off...
it's okay. There's tons of cliches in it. I do it on purpose. It's okay.
Okay, so you start off with the typical cliche, fantasy beginning, and then suddenly you have these crystal balls that people are talking on, and it's like, okay, maybe this person's a witch. Oh no, that person has a crystal ball too. oh wait, no, the mirror's a TV. Okay, I see what's going on here. And then it just keeps progressing like that. And like you mentioned, the castle, and immediately when you described that, I imagined Harry Potter, but I didn't know if you wanted me to draw that parallel or not. But
it's okay. It's okay. It's not as Harry Potter has a very ethereal, mysterious, and foreboding sense to the castle. This one's a little more Disney princess. It's definitely, a shining pinnacle spire on a mountaintop kind of thing. But it is the same in the essence of Castle High School with a bunch of teenagers running around.
Carrying their high school beef into the after high school into their kingdoms.
Yes, of course, because why wouldn't you? In the same vein of Game of Thrones, everyone's vying for power. People are backstabbing each other, trying to get a leg up. It's the same thing in high school, and it's also a commentary on how God. After high school, literally nothing matters. You create new friendships. You go on through life. Literally none of it matters. But for some people, it's all they have and it's all they carry with themselves. They never leave that small town. They never get into the world. And so it's very much a commentary on how those relationships in high school could start that Kingdom War 20 years later.
Yeah. I remember when we were in gym class and he hit me with that towel. Ready the troops.
Oh, yeah. No, and in the later books, too, there's a really funny thing that happens. So you won't necessarily see that in this book, but in the later books, there's a lot of really funny kingdom warfare that kind of happens.
Okay. So you keep mentioning the series of books. Now, there is one that you have finished and self-published. What's that one called?
So the one that is the first one is out right now, and this is the one that this is the main one right now. The series is called The Chronicles of Royal High. The book title for this one is The Lost Noble. It's up on Amazon right now and Kindle for download. And this is the first of a 5-part series. And I'm hard at work on the second book right now as we speak. I'm doing the edits on it. That is going to be The Chronicles of Royal High, Dragon's Wrath.
Okay, so you already have a title for the second book, and
I have it all. All of them have titles already. I know where this is going.
and while I don't want you to reveal the other ones, but and the reason why I'm asking all these questions is because when I do get to talk to a writer, I like to learn a little bit about their process and stuff like this for creating stuff, because you never know who's listening to this. It might be someone like yourself who's had this idea for 10 years and they're struggling, and something you might say will get them over that hump.
One of the most amazing things is, because I do Comic-Cons now and I do Renaissance fairs, which actually, me selling these books at Renaissance fairs is fantastic. It goes over so well. But just doing the circuits, through all of this, the people that I meet, I can't tell you how many other writers I've met who have seen just me self-publish it and put it out there and just bring it to the people, and they're like, wow, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, just get it done, you can do it too. And they're like, yeah, and it's just people who have worked on their stuff for 10 years like I was in that rut. You can absolutely do it. It's such a different day and age now, especially with social media. Word travels so fast. If you can get yourself out there, you can market it correctly, you can totally do it.
Now, where I was going with that is because I'm kind of curious. You originally set out for this to be a 5-book series, right?
4 books, actually.
Oh, 4 books.
Actually, when I originally set out for this, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just was writing. And then, literally, when I was a kid, I was just like this. And then, 3 pages became 10, became 20, became 50. And eventually I realized this was going to be a book. And then eventually I realized this was going to be 3 books. No, this is going to be 4 books. And then as of the last year, I realized, this is 5 books. My first manuscript was 800 pages. My editor was like, chop it in half. So it's 5 books now. Okay.
Because I was curious, because I believe a lot of the time writers, they'll use an outline for their ideas. And I was curious if you have an outline that encompasses all 5 books, and then it branches down into an outline for each individual book itself.
Yes, absolutely. So that outline actually didn't exist until maybe the last year or 2, because again, I didn't know what I was doing. But I knew that I had this story and I had to get it out. But all in my head, everything in my head, how the BBC Sherlock Holmes with Benedict Cumberbatch, he has his mind palace.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a mind palace of sorts. So I know where everything's going. I know where everything is. But being able to write it out in outline form has actually been very important, especially with people who are reading my stuff and helping me. You know, my beta readers, my editor. And so absolutely, yes. The second book. So the first book really wasn't outlined. But the second book, and now the third one too as well, everything is outlined. I have where it's all going. So.
You have the roadmap, which is
yeah.
Instead of sitting there staring at a blank screen.
First, you know.
Okay, so we have an idea of where you're going with this, and you already know. Do you know how the fifth book ends? Like, you know that, right?
I do, absolutely. Okay. So it's in my head. It's 80% done, roadmap wise. I know where it's all going. There's a few questions as to how we're kind of gonna want to get there, but it will work itself out once I'm at that point. There's really, it's good. It's solid. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It'll get there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
With this being self-published, what kind of struggles have you had to deal with in finally, you said your original manuscript was 800 pages and had to be chopped down. Can you take us through that process to finally handing the book to somebody to read?
My God. So.
You don't have to. You don't have to give us like a long version. I mean, if you just want to give us like
No. It was one of the most soul-bearing, painful, terrifying things to hand it over to my friend, who is she's in her master's English program right now, and she's a damn good editor, and she loved it. It was great, but she's all like, it's too long. I'm like, I know. And when I handed it to her too, it wasn't even quite done, because that's what the second book is right now. Is what I'm working on. And she's all like, this. You should chop this in half. Like, it's not even that you need to take all this out. This is 2 books. And I'm like, I know. And so we it was so crazy, but I actually realized the perfect place to drop it off at. And I actually love it so much better this way now than how I was originally going to have it.
There was a natural fear of you finishing the manuscript and handing it to another living person who you knew would criticize it and
so much
make changes.
Anxiety. Not even criticize, just like, oh my gosh. It's and also too, the procrastination of everything, dragging your feet. And it's not even being lazy. It's just, you're your own worst enemy. I don't know about other people, but I know that I'm my own worst enemy. I had a friend one time tell me, I think you're scared of it. I was like, what do you mean? This is a couple years ago. It was like 2 years ago. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm scared of it? This is everything I ever wanted. And he was like, no, you're scared of it. And I now look back and I realize that. And I realized that I was scared of it, but not in the sense you might think. I suffer from anxiety. I very much suffer from anxiety. I actually suffer from social anxiety as well, if you believe that. I only get so many spoons a day. And so it's not that I was scared of it failing. I knew it was so good. I knew it was going to be successful. And I was scared of the crazy success and what my life would turn into because of it. And I've never once doubted this thing. And I don't know a lot of people that have that much confidence in their work. And I'm not saying that I'm the best author out there. I'm a fandom dork. I know what fandom dork's like. I like this book. It's a good book. And so I knew that if a girl like me read this, that they'd love it. And so it wasn't necessarily the fear of failing. It was my own self-sabotage of, I knew it was going to be good.
So, not fear of failing, but the fear of being the victim of success.
Yeah, and if you're somebody who, yes, I love my friends, yes, I love meeting people, but I realized as I've gotten older, it's super draining, and just keeping up with life, things speed up. So, success brings so many more just responsibilities and things that just to happen, and you got to hold on. And it was. Oh man, I'm realizing some things about myself right now. I guess it was just not knowing if I was ready.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel, so just a few minutes ago you mentioned that you've been going to conventions and Renaissance fairs and stuff like that and mingling with the people and getting them involved with your novel.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that? Is that something that you started doing just because of the book, or did you already have a foot in there? Or...
Um, so, so, harkening back to my upbringing, uh, I started going to, my first Comic-Con was in 2006. I went to San Diego Comic-Con with my nerd family for family vacation, down in San Diego. And, I've been doing cons for, God, what year is it? 2018 for what, last 12 years? So I've grown up with conventions. And then, being the theatrical dork I am, who doesn't love dressing up as their favorite superhero? So cosplay naturally came with this. So I've cosplayed for the last 10 years myself. And then with all of that, with going to con, cosplaying, obviously you're meeting people all over. And California is my home base, Northern California and Southern California. And so doing cons and whatnot. Also, I grew up in the Renaissance Fair community. Ever since I was little, my parents would take me. And when I was, I think 11 is when I first dressed up with them. We all got outfits and we started dressing up for fair. And and Renaissance Fair, too, was a huge influence on my work as well, growing up in the Ren Fair environment. So with all of that, now, flash forward 10 years later as an adult, I realized that I created a bit of an Instagram and Facebook presence already. I had a bit of a following already. I knew this book series was going to be a thing. It was going to be my life. And I had a friend sit down and tell me, she's like, with the network of people with all the convention you've done, you have the internet presence already. You could self-publish this. You could totally do that. You could push it. And I'm all like, and it made me stop and realize, oh, wow, I could. I actually could do that. And that's what I've done. And it's absolutely not the norm. I recognize that. But it's my normal, I guess. It's what I've done. And so definitely having that convention backing, knowing people on the con circuit for the last 10 years, being able to knock on those doors, be like, hey, guess what I just did? I need a booth. How do we do this? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, Rachel, we got you. Let's get you set up kind of thing. So it's, I was this cosplayer who was always a writer who finally, embraced her future. And it's really funny, too, to hear people go, what? I didn't know you were a writer. You're just a cosplayer. And I'm all like, wrong. Always a writer. Just a dork that liked dressing up.
You mentioned that that's not the norm to self-publish and take your book to a convention, but you also mentioned earlier that being able to self-publish and use the internet and everything like that to actually distribute your product is also new as well.
I feel like it absolutely is going to become the new normal.
You're essentially taking out the middleman. It might be a little tougher. Who knows how that path branches? Maybe you go with a publisher. I mean, I don't know how this whole process works. I'm not a writer myself, but you might have a easier time going one way than the other, and somebody else might have an easier time going the opposite direction than you. But the pathways are still there for you. They weren't there, 20 years ago.
No, not at all. Not at all. Self-publishing 20 years ago was just like, okay, and you might sell 50 books in your local bookstore. Now, with technology in the last 10 years, the explosion of obviously Facebook, Instagram, social media, Amazon Prime, Apple, all of it. I mean, just with the explosion of technology that has interwoven our lives together, word about something can get out so easy. And 20 years ago, self-publishing, no. Nowadays, if you've got the backing, I say do it. You don't, it's not to discredit publishing houses because there's so much awesome goodness there. But if you are just really you just want to get your work out there and see where it takes you, why not self-publish? Why not? You can take it to the masses instantly.
Gotta love technology.
You know, in my world, the fairy technology, there's different fairy clans. There's different fairy clans, and they each kind of have their own brand of magic that, you know, they're very jealous of. The fairy technology, the one that does the crystal ball communications and the magic mirror televisions and stuff, I literally call them Fairy, F-E-R-I, and it stands for Fairy Energy Revolution Incorporated, and it's very much a joke, but I'm really glad earlier you made that correlation that you were like, they're like Apple. I'm like, yeah, they're Apple. Like, that's exactly what they are.
So if that clan is Apple, then is another fairy clan maybe Samsung?
Oh my god, that's awesome. Oh, you're giving me ideas.
Oh, that actually isn't where you went with that?
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. Oh my.
Well, you said they compete they compete with different types of magic, and I mean.
Well, they do though. There's, you know, with the portaling for fast travels, that's the collocation clan of fairies. It's, you know, all these different fairy clans. You know, and as you read into it, you start to understand the lore and the faction breakoffs and stuff. But it would be interesting if they had a rival clan.
Maybe one of the clan members breaks off and forms their own company.
Oh my god. Fantastic.
I want credit for that in the book.
Put a pin in that.
Okay, so all right, we know about your book, we know about you, Rachel. We're coming up on just about 40 minutes here. I don't want to take up all of your day here.
Oh man, I had to go grocery shopping today. Shoot.
So, since you have worked on this novel as hard as you have, do you have any words of encouragement for anybody that is working on any project? And it could be a novel, student film, anything, where they're kind of hitting a hump and maybe they could use some words of encouragement from somebody that has had similar setbacks or just, you know, grinding that long road. What kind of advice do you have for any?
Don't ever stop. Like, I can't describe it, but this is something since I was 13 that I've always held in my heart. Different ideas of where I want my life to go have come and gone. This is literally something that's never left me. And I think that when you have those kinds of things so deep within inside you, pursue it and don't stop. Don't stop. I believe we're absolutely given gifts and visions and things we're meant to do in this life. And if we listen to those and be smart too, you know, if you're not getting where you need to go, figure out why. Maybe a writing class would do you good. Maybe you have a really great story, but you're having trouble with expression. Writing classes, try that. Maybe you're a really great writer and you got an idea, but you're just so stumped. Play some video games, man, or get out, you know, get some inspiration. If you have a dream, chase it. Don't look at your life 30 or 40 years from now and wonder what could have been.
So if you have a dream, chase it and don't give up. Don't stop believing.
Journey. It's all about the journey. But yes.
Rachel, to wrap this up, where can people find the book? Where can people find you on social media? Do you have a website or something these folks can find you at?
If you have enjoyed my ramblings, bless you, you can find me on all social media platforms. I'm really active on Instagram. Facebook I'm active on as well. Instagram's my big one right now. I'm trying to get better at Twitter. Is that what the kids do today? They tweet? Need to tweet more.
Yeah, I have a Twitter and I don't do much with it. I just like other people's tweets.
I know. But really just anything. I mean, just type my name into Google. You will find everything. But the cool thing is I just launched my website, rlitfin.com. It's just my name is rlitfin.com, and I do update that thing like frequently, and you can find all my future events coming up. I'm mainly California based right now. However, I was just invited out to a con in Orlando in May. I just completed it. I was at MegaCon. I was invited and guested out, and that was very, very cool. So I am not adverse to branching out across the world, nations, and anything. But right now, for all intents and purposes, I'm mainly West Coast based, up and down West Coast. But on my website, you'll be able to find past events that I've done and future events that I'm doing. I have a mailing list as well. If you want to keep up with my my mailer and know, so you're up to date when the second book comes out. You can buy my book. I'm not in bookstores yet, and I actually have a few things I'm working on for that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. But for the most part, I am on Amazon. I'm on Prime. You can get it super quick. But if you're a Kindle reader, I just put it up on Kindle as well, so it's available for download. I'm working on the audiobook for later on this year for the Chronicles of Royal High, The Lost Noble, that first book. My dad, actually, he's fantastic when it comes to audio kind of stuff, so we're working on the audiobook for that. And just a lot of stuff in the pipeline, but you can most anywhere that you follow people, you'll find me.
Okay. And you said your dad's good at audio stuff. Is he going to be doing the reading himself, or did you get a hold of someone else to do the reading for you? Do you have any news on that yet?
That's going to be a surprise.
I see.
It's going to be good, though. It's going to be really, really great.
That's good. I actually find myself having to use audiobooks more often. I'll listen to them instead of podcasts when I'm at work. And
I feel so bad, too, because I've had people like, oh, my gosh, I want to read it. I don't have time to read. Is it on audio? And I'm just like, soon. So I'm working really hard to get that out there as quickly as I can, because there's power in fandom. There's so much power in fandom. If people like your book, they're going to tell their friends, and then they're going to tell their other friends, because nobody wants to be alone in their favorite fandom.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I watched that show, Santa Clarita Diet, and I enjoyed it so much, I've run around telling everyone to watch it.
I've actually worked on that show.
Oh, did you?
Yes. My day job here in Los Angeles, I work in the industry. I do stuff.
Well, that's good.
I worked on that.
That's actually a really good show.
I did background on that show.
Oh, okay. It's a really surprising show. I actually just thought it was about cannibalism, and then I saw the trailer, and I'm like, oh, that's not what it is at all. And then after the pilot...
What is it? Because I worked on it. I didn't even know, I was just like, okay, work day. But what is it about?
So, Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant are both realtors. They're a husband and wife team, and they go to show a house in the trailer. This is all in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but they go to show a house, and then Drew Barrymore starts throwing up like crazy, like more than any person should ever throw up. And so Timothy Olyphant gets the other people out of the house, and he comes back, and he doesn't feel a pulse. And she had thrown up like this red ball or something like that they don't know what it is. And she wakes up after like 10 seconds. But she still has no pulse. And then, he gets her home and everything like that. And they don't know what's going on. But she's suddenly a little bit more, she has a better sexual appetite, I guess, which is part of, it explains it later in the show. But when you're undead, like normal zombies, they want to feed. That's like part of their drive. But since she's not like a typical zombie, she's just more expressive, I guess. But yeah, so she turns out she's undead, and then she ends up eating somebody.
How did she become undead?
That's just it. They don't know. They you know what? I take that back. As you watch the show, it becomes a little bit more clear about how this happened. But I don't want to give away anything to you, but it is definitely worth watching. It's hilarious.
So I have your word that it's actually good.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'll bite.
I got my brother. I got my brother to watch it. I don't know if you're squeamish with gore or anything like that.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, they use really good practical effects the first season, then they kind of wean off of that for the second. But I think it's like 10 episodes a season. But I got my brother to watch the pilot last Saturday, and he finished season 2 Sunday. So.
Oh my gosh,
he did the same thing I did. So definitely worth checking out.
I am hooked. I will have to check it out.
And maybe you can spot yourself in the background.
Honestly, I probably could. I worked a few episodes.
Okay, Rachel, we want to thank you so much for your time, but do you have any update? You mentioned that you go to events and stuff like that. Do you have anything upcoming in the next month or two or anything like that?
Yes. So I have several book signings actually mapped out for the rest of 2018. It was basically my book tour. So you're going to be able to find me next at first weekend in August. That is August 4th and 5th, I believe. If you are in the Bay Area here in California, you should definitely come out to the San Jose Fantasy Festival. It is a Renaissance festival put on by my dear friends Bill and Mab. But I love the San Jose Fantasy Ren Fair, so I will be there with my books doing as a guest. I will be signing. And then my next one is I will be at Long Beach Comic-Con in mid-September. And then after that, I will be at Folsom Renaissance Fair. I'm still working on another undisclosed con for October. And then definitely in November, I'm doing Kearney Renaissance Fair. So all of this is in California, by the way. But yeah, I'm lining up about 1 to 2 events a month out here for the rest of the year. So definitely stay tuned.
Okay, well, that's a busy year.
And you'll be able to find them, and I list everything upcoming on my website, RLitFin.
I was just going to mention that. I was actually just going to mention that if they wanted to follow up on this podcast and find out where you were to double check dates and whatnot like that, they can head on over to rlitfin.com and follow you and meet up with you hopefully and check out this book.
Yes, absolutely. You got it.
All right. Well, Rachel, we do appreciate your time and coming on here and talking to me about, well, really everything about you. And
I'm an open book. See what I did there?
Yeah. Before we do say goodbye, do you have any idea of when book 2 might be coming out, or is it too early to tell? Are we too...
This autumn.
Oh, this autumn. That's soon. Okay.
2018 will not end before I have that second book out.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a lot sooner than I thought it might be. But you did mention it was an editing. So.
It was 800 pages, so.
Oh, that's true. It is the second half of the first book, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rachel. Well, it has been a true pleasure. I hope we get to talk to you again, maybe after the other book comes out, and we can have you back on to get some updates on where everything's going for you.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Jean BookNerd. I love you guys. You guys are just Jean BookNerd. Fantastic team you guys are.
Oh, well, I think that's more Jean than anything.
Actually, Jean is a wonderful woman, and I love her very much, and you guys rock.
Oh, thank you. Rachel, any last words?
Yes. Have a great day.
You too, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Rachel for taking a lot of time from her day to give us that more casual form interview. We hope to check back in with her down the road to see how things have gone for her on this continued adventure, not just the one in the book, but also her adventure of creating it. As mentioned during the chat, you can keep up to date with her at rlitfin.com. You can also stay up to date with the latest content of the book nerd nature over at genebooknerd.com. You can email us at podcast@genebooknerd.com, and also on the site you can sign up for the mailing list. That's a wrap for this episode, and that's another page for genebooknerd.com. Oh, hi Rachel.
Hi, this is Rachel Litfin, and you are listening to genebooknerd.com.